Bong Joon-ho's Parasite unfolds as a visual parable of class struggle, echoing Karl Marx's critique of capitalism's structural inequalities. Through its architectural spaces, tonal shifts, and narrative reversals, the film becomes a cinematic expression of Marx's dictum: the history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles. Careful, spoilers ahead. The film's central metaphor of class struggle is spatial. The term class struggle refers to the antagonism and tension that exist among different classes because of clashing interests and inequalities of power. The park's sunlit mansion, perched high above Seoul, embodies the bourgeois dream of comfort, order, and invisibility of labor. In contrast, the Kim's semi-basement home, half submerged and bathed in the stale glow of streetlight, represents the proletariat's liminal existence, neither fully seen nor entirely forgotten. Bong's camera captures this division with architectural precision. Verticality becomes class. To ascend is to approximate privilege. To descend, as in the film's torrential scene, is to sink into the economic underworld. Marx's notion of false consciousness also reverberates in the film. Our inability to recognize inequality, oppression, and exploitation because of the prevalence of views that legitimize the existence of social classes and make it seem natural to us. The Kim family initially believes infiltration into the Park household will bring liberation, a myth of social mobility that capitalism perpetuates. Yet, their labor remains invisible, their humanity conditional. Their attempt is not to fight class struggle, but just to invert it. Even in mimicry, they cannot transcend the system, they merely perform within its walls. The park's oblivious benevolence, their polite disgust at the smell of the poor, marks the subtle violence of ideology, exploitation wrapped in civility. Their oppression is disguised even to themselves, hidden behind politeness. When the hidden basement is revealed, the film exposes what Marx might call the repressed unconscious of capitalism, the underclass beneath the underclass, the labor so buried it is forgotten, like unconsciousness itself. Bong stages this revelation not as a plot twist, but as an unveiling of structure. The house's architecture becomes the anatomy of class itself. Violence erupts not as moral failure, but as systemic inevitability, the return of what capitalism tries to suppress. The brilliance of Bong is to mark this return through a shift in the narrative style. The film suddenly changes its mood, and what had tones of dark comedy becomes a tragic horror. In its final moments, Parasite offers a fantasy of redemption, a son dreaming of buying the house. But Bong, ever the ironist, frames it as unreachable. The fantasy dissolves back into the semi-basement's dim light. Marx's words linger. It is not the consciousness of men that determines their being, but their social being that determines their consciousness. The dream of the Kim is already determined by the structure that crushes them. The title Parasite carries a quiet cruelty, asking who truly feeds on whom. At first, it seems to name the Kims, infiltrating the wealthy Park household like organisms seeking a host. Yet, the Parks too depend on the Kim's unseen labor, the comfort sustained by others' invisibility. The word parasite thus collapses under its own irony. Both families feed on one another, each trapped in a cycle of dependence. From a Marxist view, the true parasite is not a person but the capitalist system itself, quietly feeding on exploitation while convincing all of their autonomy. Bong renders this condition cinematically, through mirrored gestures, repeated meals, and the film's descending staircases, until we see that Parasite is not a story of deception, but a parable about mutual contamination. Thus, Parasite is not simply a social satire, it is a cinematic dialectic. Through light and shadow, height and depth, comedy and tragedy, Bong Joon-ho makes Marx's critique visual. The film does not merely depict class conflict, it embodies it, inviting us to recognize the invisible architecture of inequality that, like the house itself, shelters some while bearing others. Thank you for watching this video. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you want to keep track of other videos. Don't hesitate to leave a comment or to contact me if you want to know more. See you next time!